this. Who so far, and we'll go down the list, who so far has stood out to you? I want to get to about 3 to 4 to maybe 5 standouts.
Yeah, today, and you're right. Yesterday we had the mock game.
Mhm.
Unfortunately for the fans, and this was by far Saturday's crowd was like the old days
Nice.
of coming to Oxnard, and but unfortunately it was a mock game, and there was a lot of walking around and a lot of guys wearing bucket hats and stuff like that, and I felt bad for the crowd. The folks that were there today, maybe some got to stay over and work or got to watch. Excuse me. Um, we're starting to see where they're putting guys in place to get them in position to get really good looks at them. And
Okay.
I mentioned I'll mention a guy just off the jump today because I think that Tyler Guyton. There's been a
Nice. This is
lot
what
of
they want.
concerns. Yeah, there's been a lot of concern about Tyler Guyton, and why hasn't Tyler Guyton been running with the ones?
Yes.
And so Mike Solari, the line coach, Mike McCarthy, the front office, can't tell you why all of a sudden that yesterday we come to practice and Tyler Guyton is running with the ones, but then today we see a competitive period where the offense and defensive line were part of. We had been seeing a lot of 7-on-7 stuff, which is linebackers and secondary and receivers and tight ends and backs. No offense and defensive line competitive period at all. Well, again, no pads, but here's Tyler Guyton going up against Tank Lawrence first reps out of the gate. Nice pass set, great job right there. Kind of shocks, Tank a little bit with the punch. And Tank had to fight him a little bit there, but good rep. Micah Parsons takes some rep against him. No worse for wear there. He goes against another rookie, in Marshawn Nealon. Good battle there. And so there was only one time where it appeared that Guyton was really stressed. It was a fourth down play, a key play. I leaned over to Todd Archer and I said, "This is where Micah Parsons goes and gets a sack." And Micah Parsons came off the ball and he got after Tyler Guyton pretty good.
Okay.
And and Dak had to hold the ball and eat it, and
Okay.
it likely been a sack. But the pocket was breaking down. The defense did a really good job in this 2-minute period of getting off the field when they had to get off the field. They gave up the one big play, with Billy Johnson, the wide receiver, making a really nice play over Carson from
Yes.
Cooper Rush. Beautiful ball, well thrown, great route. Carson just got beat
Yeah.
on the play. And, but other than that, I mean, Carson had an interception today. That's another guy you can mention. I'm trying to focus in on these guys that, I'll tell you what, they've done the right thing. Adding Kendricks to this
Nice.
linebacker group has, I think, really, really helped them as well. I mean, Eric Kendricks is a pro player, and you could tell by the way that he plays. He had an interception today. Dak tried to fit the ball inside to Cooks, and nice drop by Kendricks. There was coverage on the back side of that
Yes.
play, so it was kind of a bracket coverage with Nashawn Wright. So he tried to fit a ball in between Wright and then also with Kendricks, and Kendricks was able to come up with the ball. So, yeah, it was a good day. I mean, there were these young wide receivers. Tolbert continues to shine on these plays. Schoonmaker had a couple of catches today on some plays. It was good for him. They're getting the tight ends really more involved with the game planning, with the boots and the waggles. And what I mean by that is flow goes one way, quarterback comes the other. There's usually some type of misdirection play where a tight end is running the opposite direction. And that's how they found a way to get the ball to the tight ends. John Stevens had a nice catch today. So it was one of those. It was really a 50-50 day. And
Nice.
when defense needed to make some stops, they were able to make stops. Offense on some fourth downs had some conversions, but that group three, which are guys like Cooper Beebe and and others, playing, that don't get. I'll tell you what. Today was the first day that I really noticed Nathaniel Pete, the running back,
Mm-hmm.
the rookie running back, explosive player to and through the hole. When you have the offense and the defensive line working against each other, and you hand him the ball, and they, hat on hat, and then he's through the hole, and then they threw a ball to him another time. Then he came up with on a third down or on the 2-minute drill with the group three, had a blitz pickup. He's a shorter guy. They
Mm-hmm.
caught a blitz. He made the pickup. Trey Lance gets the ball out. If you're going to want to make a football team, those are the kinds of things. You're going to have to run the ball well. You're going to have to catch the ball well. And when they ask you to blitz pickup, you've got to pick up the right guy, and you've got to give your quarterback a chance. And I'm going to say that Nathaniel Pete had himself a nice day to get noticed on tape.
Okay, so that's a lot to unpack, and thank you so much,
Yeah,
Bryan,
I'm
for
sorry.
unpacking
I
that.
know.
No, that is
It's
that's what these fans want, and I tell you,
yeah,
you're so detailed. I just admire the recollection. Like, I mean, there's
yeah,
scouts who wouldn't be able to remember that, and they wrote it down. And I mean,
yeah.
and so this is what this is what they came for, and I thank you for that. So, Bryan, let's go down the list, and I want to. So, what I heard was Tyler Guyton, Green Arrow
Yeah.
up. I
Yeah.
heard, I heard Kendrick's Green Arrow up. I heard Carson,
Right.
which this is what Carson, this is a mixed bag with Carson. He can be
Right.
physical, but he can get caught at times
Right.
peaking, and he doesn't have elite speed, but he did
Right.
have the pick. We saw the pick on Trey Lance. I saw him lead the ball inside a little bit. So that there's that. But then I'm hearing a lot of mention of kneeling. So let's start with Guyton.
Okay.
Technique wise, because I think this is what fans want to know. What are you seeing that says, you know what? Maybe, just maybe he can do this, Bryan. Is it the arm
Yeah.
length? Is it the footwork? Is it both? Talk to me.
Yeah. I think that when you watch him do pre-practice drills, it's just imagine you taking a broomstick and putting it across your shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
and then doing pass sets to
Yeah.
try. It teaches you to keep your shoulders back, and it keeps you keeps you where you sit down and play with knee bend. This kid's a really good athlete. Now,
I'm
I will
telling you.
say this. I will say this because there was a time he got out in space. They ran a crack toss, and for your listeners, motion from the wide receiver, crack on the end, and then tackle pulls outside.
Pull, so like a pin pull, old school
Yeah,
pin pull.
pull. Yeah, exactly. So crack toss, and it wasn't clean. It just was kind of just a bang, bang. Guys banging off each other. It wasn't clean, but he was able to get outside and get in second level and run, and that's the kinds of things he could do. Now, there were some times where when he was going up against Parsons, where it was like he wasn't in really good technique. It was
Okay.
Parsons was beating him up, and he was kind of leaning and struggling, but fighting, and it took everything he had, his length, his skill, the balance he plays with, to keep Parsons off Dak.
Yeah.
And so and Nealon rushed him pretty hard too. And I know we're gonna get to Nealon, but the things that Guyton can do from an athletic standpoint are impressive.
Okay.
Now the learning curve, the hand placement, the ability to, you could tell there's some fight in his body because, like I said, I was expecting Tank to take him to task. I was expecting Parsons. Parsons did get him the one time on the fourth down play. But other than that, the reps that he had, I would say they were very, very some high marks there. And a lot of it has to do with his ability to get away from the line, to extend, and to be able to sit down and not get overextended. But there were a couple times he got overextended and got away with it because he's just such a good athlete that he can recover.
The
He can
footwork.
recover that way. The footwork, yeah.
Yeah, hearing him talk, I really dissected his interview. I mean, the guy said he didn't even take a vacation. It's been just
No.
work. And I mean, it's interesting because they come off of their college season, then they go to the Senior Bowl, then they go to training. Then you don't want there to be burnout, but you do like the fact that, I mean, I'd rather have you focused than not. So I appreciate that. Let's stay on Marshawn Nealon because here's what I've
Yeah.
noticed, Brian. And I'll say this before the Sam Williams injury, this guy's on the field a lot, Brian.
He is.
What
Yeah.
do they see with this guy? Is it the strength? I know. So I knew this when it came to fans, Brian. If you weren't
Mhm.
hardcore draft people like me and yourself, you may
Yeah.
not be like, who's this kid? What? Who do we draft?
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
then you listen to Bryan Brouddus, you listen to Dane Brugler, and they're talking about no, like I know he's from Western Michigan, but like this is a
Yeah.
guy. And then day 2, day 3 with the Dallas Cowboys, he's getting starter reps at times.
Yeah.
Tell me more about Marshawn Nealon and why they love this
Yeah.
guy.
I appreciate your compliments, Foots. I really do. I had questions about his ability to bend, and I had questions about his ability with quickness when I
Mm-hmm.
watched his tape in college. I saw power. I saw strength. I was worried about, can this guy bend and can he get off the ball?
Okay.
My concerns, and
Okay.
I'm just being truthful with you. I do appreciate your compliments. I really do. Uh, I had my questions about him, and then I watched him the last 2 days, and his get off is much better. He doesn't play as
Mm.
upright. He doesn't play, when I say upright, he doesn't, when he comes off his stance, it's not straight up. It's more of a flat back, and it's getting direction is what he's doing. And I was worried that he was going to be a rusher that popped up and then tried to hand fight, strong, be that guy. He has got some ability, and I'm going to say this: the time that he's been working in OTAs, mini camps, maybe those times where we weren't able to watch him, where he was with, the strength staff, working on his bend, working on his quickness. He has improved that. He doesn't look like the same player that we saw at Western Michigan when it comes to rushing the passer.
Okay.
But the strength is there, the power's there, the desire to get there is there. He's got a little bit now of some burst, some flat back, and I think that he's working on that ability to get to the corner. And
Mm.
once he develops a little bit more hand fight, I just don't want him to be that, that guy that was always going to play with power.
Yeah, speed to
Play
power.
play with power. But yeah, play with some power. But if you could get that shoulder past that shoulder of that tackle and break him down, he's got the strength to be able to run to the ball. So I think he's getting more work because he's earned more work.
Nice.
He's earned the opportunity to be a guy that they. But in talking with Mike Zimmer the last couple of days, Mike really likes his young kids, and he's trying to. He's like, listen. He's like, Brian. He goes, you want to talk about these kids, and he goes, I'm happy for him. He goes, these kids, you tell them what to do, and they try. They try.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. They're not dumb kids. They
Yeah.
try to do what you're asking to do. He says, but please, he goes, we ain't got the pads on yet. He goes,
Yeah.
we'll learn about Mozzie, and we'll learn about Nealon, and we'll learn about Golston, and we'll learn about, he goes, well, hell, we'll even learn about Tank, and we'll learn about Micah Parsons when we get the pads on.
Yeah.
He goes, but right now, these young kids, and he was talking about Damone Clark.
Nice.
He's talking about Damone Clark. He goes, I go, Mike, you could be such a help to Damone Clark, because Damone Clark, he's not always an instinctual player, and he doesn't always see it the right way. But when he does, he can cover ground. Him and Overshone are switching out roles of playing nickel and then playing in the base, and they're kind of switching back and forth. But Damone Clark looks like a different player, and I was talking with some people in the organization about that having Mike come in, Mike believes in his really hands-on that coaching stuff.
Yeah.
And if he could they believe that he could get Clark going. And I talked to Mike about this. I said, hey, as an LSU guy, I want you to get Damone Clark going because I've seen him play football, but he's not an instinctual player.
Yeah.
He goes, he's working on it. he's working on it. I like the kid. I like what we have here. So I was encouraged because when without Leighton Vander Esch, he looked lost.
Hmm.
Roy Williams, if you remember safety Roy Williams from Oklahoma,
Yeah,
without Darren Woodson,
it
he
was
was
different
lost.
player.
He was
Yeah,
lost.
yeah.
So if you could figure out ways to reach these kids, and Zim told me, he goes, these kids aren't dumb. He
Yeah.
goes, these kids. He goes, Micah Parsons might be one of the smartest players I've been around. When you
Nice,
start
nice.
talking about just picking up stuff and all that. So yeah, he is very encouraged. But he's like, listen, talk to me after we get in some pads here. But
Okay.
good day, good no, and that's Zimmer talking to me, not you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
But the thing about it is he's encouraged by his young players. He's encouraged by his defensive guys. What they're picking up. On defense.
So seeing Kendricks fly around was encouraging. I think that he's
Yeah.
going to help usher in things. We don't have to stay too long there. Brian, I want to flip and I'll let you go. I want to
No
flip
man, we're
to.
good. We're good.
Okay. Because I listen. One thing I like to respect is people's time, Brian. And you
No.
a hard worker, man. You literally went straight from the field, and you about to do 3-4 spots. I know you got 105. I'm sure you got Vach.
Yeah, I got.
And so I just
I got
appreciate this.
Well, no, I enjoy talking ball. So yeah, we're doing good.
Okay.
Yeah. This is
All
what we
right.
do
So
this time of year. Go ahead.
This is what we do. Okay. So cool. Brian, I have a real concern about wide receiver 2-3. I'm not one of these people who are super optimistic guy when it comes to that position. Hell, I was trying to draft this receiver class was loaded. You see guys like your alma mater, Malik Neighbors. You see other receivers around the nation making plays. And I'm looking at Tolbert. I like Tolbert, but I want to see it over and over again. And you got people, well, okay, CD's not here. This is a chance for Tolbert to get reps. No, thank you. What this is for me is I want to see Tolbert consistently beat a number 2 corner, Brian. I want to see Cooks not get pressed and basically roughed off by Jair Alexander. So I'm not sold. But Bryan Brouddus, Tyron Billy Johnson,
Yeah.
Jalen Tolbert. Do I need to give them a chance year 3? Johnson, I see he can run, but is there any route running ability? Dig in on those guys for me, Brian, because I'll be honest, I still want to see it, but I know you're there, you're on the ground. What do you see from those players?
I think today, if you had to, as we're doing here right now, breaking down a practice that just happened, I would say that Tolbert had the best day
Nice.
of the wide receivers. There was the first 2 days, you were scoring a fight at home, if it was a heavyweight boxing match, you'd probably call it a draw, is what you would do. But Brooks has shown up at times, but the last day today, he did not show up like Tolbert did. And you mentioned Tyrone Billy Johnson. Some of these guys. I mean, he was a practice squad player. Man, it was impressive how he was able to get past Carson. And you're right about Carson. Carson can knock you all over the place, and Carson probably doesn't have the deep speed to keep up with Billy Johnson there, and he didn't. And Cooper Rush threw a damn good ball, and Billy Johnson caught it. I will say this though. The guy that's really struggling in all this is Ryan Flournoy.
Okay.
Because Ryan Flournoy is standing over by me watching practice. That's the problem. And, he can't help injury. Injuries happen. And, unfortunately, Britt Brown, the associate athletic trainer, is doing the best he can to get the kid back on the field. But I was talking with Zach Wolchuk, my radio buddy on 105.3 The Fan.
Shout out to Zach.
Yeah, Zach looked at me and goes, that kid right there looks like he's destined for the practice squad. And I said, I don't think he does anything for you. The more practice time he misses, and then you see guys like Racy McMath make a play, or you see Jalen Cropper make a play, or Turpin make a play, or you see other guys make plays. This is what's happened. This is what happened to the Luke Schoonmakers and the Mozzie Smiths and those guys that don't practice. When you don't practice training camp, you get behind. And if you get behind, you never really ever catch up. And so, Ryan Flournoy, everybody was kind of talking about him, but it's Tolbert, it's Billy Johnson today, it was Racey McMath today, and Jalen Brooks. Those are the guys that that at the wide receiver group that you talk about as far as guys out there practicing, and the guys, the receivers that are going to make this team. Whoever wins that say third job, if it's Tolbert, Brooks, Billy Johnson, we'll throw his name in there because he's competing. Whoever that guy is, I keep saying this, he's going to be the most mentally tough guy because he's the guy that's going to have to come the furthest. He's the guy that can't have a bad day. Brandon Cooks could have a bad day. He's still going to be on this football team. CeeDee Lamb could have a bad day, and he would still be on this football team. Some of these guys can't have a bad day, and they have to find ways to be mentally tough. And a guy like Tolbert, I question his mental toughness a little bit. And I thought Brooks was more of a mental tough guy than him. But Tolbert today, is putting, as Jason Garrett liked to say, you stack those days. And it's tough. It's tough on these receivers. A ton of running. In those 2-minute drills, a ton of running. And to come back, make plays. The mentally tough guys are going to be the 5 or 6 that make the receiving core. And probably 3 of those spots are taken up already. So if you're Tyron Billy Johnson, you've got to find a way to keep making plays and keep getting noticed because there's only going to be a few spots for those wide receivers.
That's a lot, Brian, and I feel like that's the best picture that I've heard painted as far as the mental toughness with Tolbert and Brooks, because I agree. Like Tolbert coming out of South Alabama, I remember watching him at the Senior Bowl, Brian. I'm like, man, this kid can play. Then you get here and are the lights too bright? Maybe it's the NFL. I get it, dog. Like, hey, it's different, Holmes. And see, that's the part. I want to transition now to Kalen Carson because that was great on the receivers. I mean, you knocked that out the park. That's the part about Kalen Carson that I love. Gets beat, gets the interception. It's like he's not laying on his, I got beat. I'm not gonna make a play. I'm scared to make a play. It's like, no, he goes back and he locks John Stevens. What do you see from Carson, even outside of those plays? What is his swag like, Brian? Is he one of those guys? Is he? Do you see? What do you see in him?
I know this, that he gets a lot of work, whether it's with the ones or with the twos. He generally will play on the left side. But, they're working him in a way, and talking to Zim. Zim loves Jordan Lewis.
Okay.
He loves Jordan Lewis. And I say this in a way because I was thinking if Carson could develop, then maybe you could kick Bland inside to play corner opposite. Okay, Diggs, Bland, Carson. Those could be your three corners. And and Zim's like, man, don't throw dirt on Jordan Lewis, Brian. Don't throw any dirt on him. He goes smart, tough. I like him. He's competitive. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sorry, I was throwing dirt on Jordan Lewis. Don't throw dirt on Jordan Lewis. I'm like, okay, coach, I'm not going to throw dirt on Jordan Lewis. But that's, he likes these kids. He likes how competitive. You mentioned, Carson is one of their guys. That was a drafted. Mike Zimmer, though, and the thing I love about Mike Zimmer is a personnel guy, from my standpoint, when I worked with him in the early 2000s, was that Mike was always, just bring me whoever you want. If you think these kids can play, bring them to me, and we'll coach them. We'll coach them. His staff is that way. Bring me the players, we'll coach them. A lot of times these guys, this is not one of our guys. Man, let me tell you, Jeff Sagina, the defensive line coach, is getting after Mozzie Smith like he's his own guy. You know what I'm saying? He's getting after Tank and he's getting after guys, But that's what they do. I mean, they're getting after guys. And that's, I think, the thing that's been impressive that these – but again, talking to Mike, he's like, these kids, they're responding to what we're asking them to do. And he goes, it's early. It's early. But he goes, he made a point. He said, He goes, the offense, a couple days ago, busted back-to-back plays, and the defensive guys were going, yeah, all right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Zimmer said, hey, you MFers. He goes, you're next. Don't you be, you MFers are next, And
Yeah.
all those guys, he said all those kids just shut up. They were all like, yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Learn your plays. Yeah. And Zimmer yelled at him, yeah, you MFers, yeah, you're next.
I love it.
He was yelling at his own guys. And
Yeah.
all those guys just, he said they all just powered down, like, okay, yeah, you're right. We're the next ones.
Yeah,
but
you better know what you're doing
But,
when you
yeah,
get in that when you get out there.
Yeah, I just think that I just think that to me that I really like what I've seen so far defensively, and even in the early days or the early practices where it was 7-on-7 with no offensive defensive line, there was still that when a quarterback has to move to find space to throw the ball with no rush, that tells you that your secondary and linebackers are locked in pretty good. And on that final play that they stopped Trey Lance on 4th down, that the clock ran out, he tried to run it in, and they were
closed.
Right
there.
Yeah. Brock Morganson was right there. I mean, they closed it fast.
Mm-hmm.
They did not have a lot of time. I think there was 11 seconds left when they snapped the ball, and the play was running, moving and going and all that, and those kids locked up. I mean, locked up like they found like you barely had time to get the call out on the field, and you barely had time to react before the ball was snapped.
Mm-hmm.
And the offense came flying off, and the defense matched. Down there down there inside the 5, they matched, and there was no place for Trey Lance to throw that football. Now, maybe when we watched the tape, we could see, Trey should have thrown it. He had Hinder shot open over here, and that thing happened so fast, and those defenders matched so fast, and they closed ground when Lance broke the pocket, that there was not a lot of time to react on their part. And Zimmer has to be proud when he watches the tape tonight and sees how well his defense handled that situation where it could have been just, you get in that thing and there's usually somebody busts the coverage and it's wide open and they just throw the ball and it's a touchdown and all that. No.
Can I ask you a question, Brian?
Yeah.
With a Quinn defense, you knew it was a lot of team speed.
Yeah.
Do you still see some of that, Brian?
Yeah, and that's the one thing Mike actually does appreciate about this team. He goes, they've got some fast kids.
Okay,
they've got some fast kids, and he loves what he has. I was asking him about moving Tank around and moving Sam Williams around while you're flipping him and stuff. He goes, I'm just trying to create opportunities to maybe work Micah with these guys. Move Micah around a little bit more too. And so I'm like, okay, cool. He's thinking about his best player, but we haven't seen Tank Lawrence take a lot of rushes at right end, or at the time, when Sam Williams was practicing there, he was taking rushes at left end. We always saw Sam on the right side, never on the left side. So, but Zim he's trying to figure out ways to make sure that he has Micah Parsons in the spot where he needs, like if it's in that A gap or if it's out wide. I mean, today they had him rushing a little bit more off the edge because that's how we got to work with Guyton that we saw in practice today, because he was rushing off the edge with against Guyton. So, it was a very productive day from an evaluating standpoint of some high stakes young guys getting thrown in the fire and having to react to a situation. Good.
Getting the answers you need. Yeah, getting the answers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Brian, I'll end with this. If there's one player who you want to see more from, or you like, because I love what you said about, because I'm like this too. Actually, this is one of your isms that I stole. I don't like, listen, Mozzie, healthy. Yes, you need to be healthy. Year 2, it wasn't good. You needed to be out there. Schoonmaker, yes, you can't be on the courts forever. Listen, homie, drink your milk. Let's get out there. Let's get it going. I love that. I love that because guess what? That's how it should be, Brian. Like, what are we doing? So let me, and I know injury and all that, but I get it. But hey, this is the NFL. It's big time. Brian, who's one player that you're like, okay, this was day 4. It'll be day 5, day 6.
Yeah.
I want to see something, and you don't have to poop on them, but just if it's one player.
No, it's so funny that you say it that way, and again, you talk about the pads, you'll know a lot more, and I learned something from Zim about that, and he's right about that. And you mentioned the name Mozzie Smith, and I think we all want to see Mozzie Smith. I think we
Yeah,
all want to. I specifically spent the first hour of practice watching Mozzie Smith. I just
I
watched him.
respect that.
I just watched him. I wanted to see Jeff Zugina, the defensive line coach. I wanted to see how he interacted. I wanted to see him do the drills. I wanted to see where his energy level was. I wanted to see, was he getting corrected? Was he asking questions? Did he look engaged?
Mm-hmm.
That's I wanted to know. I mean, if I was working for the Dallas Cowboys and I was Will McClay, and Will McClay was down there with the defensive line. He was down there looking at that group. And if I was Will McClay, I would have stood there for that whole hour like I did, and I would have watched 58 work, because I want to know where he is mentally. I want to know where he is physically. I just want to know about him. I want to know, is this important to him?
That's real.
He took a lot of beating last year. He's a very, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, somebody will probably clip our conversation here and play it for him. I think he's a very sensitive player. I think he's a very sensitive guy.
Maybe he needs to hear that. He needs to hear that.
Well,
It's okay.
I think, we all, there's a lot of folks. Jeff Kavanaugh and I do a show together. Jeff always says, "Hey, you don't know what other people are going through, so try and be kind."
That's true. That's fair. That's fair.
Football, sometimes you can't be kind. Sometimes Jeff Sugina and Mike Zimmer and those guys don't know Mozzie Smith. They're learning about him, and I'm sure that Will, and that's Will's guy. Will McClay, we've seen video of Will McClay, Bergeron, Mozzie Smith. Will McClay made the call for Mozzie Smith. He's going to have to wear that one. If Mozzie Smith's an all-pro, you give Will McClay a lot of credit. If Mozzie Smith's a bust,
he's a dud. Yeah,
he'll have to wear that one. But if you're in this business long enough, you'll wear a lot of them. You'll wear a lot of them. And so, to me, I wanted to make sure. Were the drills resonating? Was his feet quick when they asked him? Their whole teaching technique is step, 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 step. And it seems to be where Jeff Sugina has to work with Mozzie the most is Mozzie becomes a one-legged football player. And I mean, he takes on a block, he's working a double team, and his right foot might go up in the air. And Jeff's like, "Mozzie, down, foot down, get down." And then what happens next play? Foot goes up, and Jeff's like, "Mozzie, down, foot down, power, sit down." And so you're like going, balance, maybe something he has to work on. Strength, not a problem, because he can hold people up. I've seen him do that.
Yeah.
His feet, but Mike Zimmer, they do drills where they have these little almost like a wash rag, like a white wash rag, and they work on hitting that foot, putting that foot on top of that piece of rag or whatever it is, and it's bump 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 bump. Your feet, and it's keeping your feet on the ground, not getting to be a one-legged football player and stuff. And like I said, it's one of those things, man. This is the great mystery. There's a couple of great mysteries in Cowboys football. It's what happens in the playoffs, a great mystery, and then the mystery of Mozzie Smith. Is this the same guy that we saw at Michigan? And they're working hard with him. I mean, Zimmer, those guys, they're working hard with the guy. And Mozzie doesn't look like he's quitting or anything like that. But, you sense pressure on him. You sense it with how, every rep is scrutinized in a way. Like, where he's got some guy like me standing 15 feet away from him, like writing down in my pad everything he does. Stuff like that.
And I'll say this. Brian, you're not the only one. And
Oh, I
with
know. I
all due
know.
respect, and
They
I
need
mean,
him to
like,
play. They need
yeah,
him to play.
that's the
I
listen.
mean, hey, the kid Daxton. I mean, Denzel Daxton had some good reps. One technique. I mean, he had some good reps, and you could hear the coach. Good job, Dens. Good job. That way, it's Dens. Good, and you're like going, okay. I'd love to
Mhm.
hear. I'd like to hear. Got it. That's it, Mozzie. Good job, Mozzie. Good,
Yeah.
and it's man. It is. They're not going to give up on the kid. These coaches, they're not. But
Yeah.
man, it is right now. I'm just trying to get a gauge where how in I'm trying to get a gauge of how engaged he is
The player is.
and how the player is, because that's going to be the issue. If he's not engaged, then they're not going to be able to reach him if he's not engaged. But right now he's engaged.
Okay, that's a very well thought out answer, Brian. Thank you so much. And I just want to say this. Listen, guys, Brian, myself, we're not. People do go through it mentally. And
Oh yeah, it's tough.
we have a lot of empathy for those. Listen.
I absolutely do.
If Mozzie doesn't hit, we're not attacking the person, but
Right.
it's our job to listen. The Cowboys have an issue at D tackle. They had an
They do.
issue stopping the run. That's not
They
the
do.
only reason the run game was bad, but it's a reason. And they drafted this guy to help. And when you hear things like Justin Rogers looks good or he looks strong, or
Yeah.
Brian just said Denzel Daxton is doing what they're asking him to do, hey, it's our job to talk about it. And we wanted to be all flowers and sunshine, but it may not be.
Maybe not be.
Yeah. Bryan Brouddus, thank you so much for jumping on, man. I'll give you a few days off and I'll be hitting you. I'll be bothering you, man. I want to see that smile, bro.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I'll be tapping in with you. Any closing words, Brian, before you go?
Yeah, like I said, Foots, we've got an off day tomorrow, so no
Nice.
practices tomorrow, so everybody can kind of catch up on all the film work or anything they're working on, and then Tuesday we'll get on with the pads.
There it is.
And then we'll carry on. So yeah, you and I will circle back here, get a couple of padded practices in the book, and help. Mike Zimmer promised me that he goes, hey, you'll be able to evaluate when you get the pads on, Brian. Like he was talking to me like I was a little kid, but he's not wrong. He's not wrong. So yeah, we'll circle back here, and thank you for allowing me to be on with you today. I really appreciate that.
Brian, listen, you got fans. You guys in for a treat. This guy, he basically goes to coffee and gets coffee with Mike Zimmer. So there it is. So Bryan Brouddus, man, love you, brother. Thank you so
cocktails.
much.
We do that in cocktails too. Yeah, we're good.
Much love, Brian. I'll let you go, buddy.
Take care.
Peace.
Man. Thank you.